All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining this session and for putting up with all of my nervous chatter as we gathered in here and got the session started. I just want to welcome you all to Stanford WebCamp. If this is your first session for the day, it's great to see you. My name is Sarah Worrell-Berg. I'm the director of the SWS Stanford Web Services team. And we're a big partner of Acquia. So I'm completely delighted to get to turn over the floor to my new friends, Jeff and Bruno. They're going to be talking about the state of content discovery for higher education websites, which seems like a pretty perfect topic for a higher education webcamp. So just want to say, please keep your mics muted throughout the presentation, but Jeff and Bruno are completely okay with questions during the session. So if you have a question, either use the raise hand feature or throw it in chat, and I will be happy to help to bring that to Jeff and Bruno's attention. There is time for Q&A at the end of the session, though, so there's going to be plenty of chance to get all of our questions answered. What else? The session is being recorded, you may have noticed, and it will be posted to the webcamp after the event. I think that's it. So take it away, Bruno.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone. Again, thank you for joining us in the for this state of content discovery for higher education websites. I'm Bruno Costa. I'm a principal solutions engineer at Acquia. I've been with the company for over 8 years. I'm really excited to be here today with Jeff Dillon. Jeff is a digital strategist at SearchStacks and a pioneer in the higher education search strategy. Jeff brings over 2 decades of strategic leadership in higher education, has served as web director at two public institutions, a founder of the EdTech Connect, and very recognized expert in search, AI, digital experience, and personalization and everything else search, I guess. So Jeff, thank you very much for joining. I'll let you do a quick intro, and we can get into it.
Well, thanks for the great intro. You covered it pretty well. I spent 20 years in higher ed. I've gone through maybe some of the same pains people on this call are. Excited to dive into this research that we conducted with the Chronicle and tell some stories how I got to spend the last 3 years of my career focusing on content discovery.
I mean, do what you need to do.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Perfect. Well, yeah, that's exactly the goal for today. So basically, we're going to be sharing this recent research that was done by the Chronicle Studio in partnership with SearchStacks. We're also a partner of SearchStacks. I'll talk a little more about that later at the end of the presentation, what that means for you as a customer and our customers. We're going to talk about the challenges as well of making content findable on university websites, and look at some concrete steps, something that you can, some actions you can take moving forward. So the first thing we have for you is the why, right? Why content discovery matters. So if you think about your website, this is usually the front door for any prospective students or any faculty, any researchers, anyone that wants to talk with Stanford University. That's where they find you, right? Your website. If they can't, if they can't find the information they're looking for, you lose their attention and potentially, they're interested in the institution or whatever they're working on. So, Jeff, can you talk a little more about that? Like, well, what's the importance? What's the why of content discovery?
Yeah, let's definitely start there. And it matters because students are coming to our campus websites much further along in their journey now. Because there's a myth out there that a lot of schools believe, I've heard this from agencies and even leadership, technical leadership at schools, that, oh, they're just gonna use Google, right? And they'll find us and they're using Google. We just can't do anything about it. And the fact is they're using these tools, they're using the AIs, and they're doing a lot of research out there. But when they come to our websites, they know a little bit more, a lot more, and they're trying to confirm this information. So that's the main reason. And we'll talk a little bit more about the complexity, how that's exploded soon. But when they don't find what they want, they don't complain. It's a very nuanced gray area of search. the people that complain are usually the department web people that are not spinning their sites up and saying, why isn't my site coming up now? But the students that don't find something will very rarely complain. So you don't know something's broken. And then combine that with the fact of, I think 8 years ago or so, the Google search appliance, the yellow boxes everybody had, got deprecated. And so people said, oh, Google's new thing is this cloud service. We'll just go here. There was no thought. There was nothing out there. So most schools are living in this band-aided situation right now. So it's kind of a perfect storm for content discovery. And I'm digging a little bit deeper into that. The Inside Higher Ed released, you've probably seen this stat out there. Academic program information is the most searched query out there. So it's another myth that like, oh, these are not students, it's all internal. It's not internal, yes, but prospective students are using your website. So, and I see that with the data I've talked to hundreds of schools. So the why is more important than ever right now.
Okay. So I mean, we know that not just for higher ed, but for anyone, having effective search and discovery is a must, right? It's not just a feature, but especially for a higher ed, you need it for everything, for recruitment, for student services, for your credibility as an institution. So I know you have done this research and there's a lot of great information there. And by the way, you're going to learn more about that as well. There is a report you can actually access, you can download. We're going to share that at the end too. But talk a little more about some of the key findings on that research.
Yeah, let's dive into that. I'm going to start off with some themes we found. And the first one is a website experience. Search frustrations were on there. 50%. So what we did, the way the survey worked is it happened in January of this year. We did it with the Chronicle Studio. There were about 225 higher ed respondents to the survey across the spectrum of academia, from IT directors, enrollment, marketers, many different types of personas. But 50% of those respondents recognize that their search frustrated users with irrelevant or outdated results. Most people, at least half, know their search doesn't work very well. And then almost half, 49%, believe that users encountered outdated information. So they know that's broken. There's navigation challenges. They know they're having problems with this, and they also acknowledge Gen Z's expectations, right? They know that they have a higher bar to meet. So that was one theme. There's a marketing agility gap that we're calling it, which is really lack of control. Only 3% of the respondents said that marketing teams have control over making adjustments to their on-site search, showing kind of a critical need for this agility. It's often held by the IT team. And the IT team really isn't on the hook to like optimize it. They just want to make sure it's working. And what does working mean? So we're seeing this, right? Marketing's at the table now, need to drive these decisions of like, what tools do we need? Delayed implementations was identified. And then content update challenges kind of falls into this. 55% of institutions reported that like sporadic content updates are common. So we know this in higher ed. Get this up on the website, get this up on the website. And it's kind of a slow process. So there's like a disconnect there. And another data point that really supports this marketing agility gap is 47% of respondents either don't use their on-site search data or they don't have access to it, despite understanding that they know it's valuable. So a lot of schools are still using Google custom search. There's other products out there, but the large majority of schools are using a free product, and they might be able to get like their top search terms, but they're not getting things like no results. What are people not finding? And that's where we can get some really key insights. So, and then the other theme that we really identified was an AI maturity gap. And it's really the current adoption versus interests is a pretty big delta there. 84% of respondents either don't use AI at all, or they're early stage with limited access to sites, using it with their site search. But 72% plan to advocate for more AI tools in the next 2 years. There are implementation barriers. We have some research in there about human AI collaboration models. So that's really what we kind of came up with. And then I have a few more data points here that this is the big one. Only 19% of web teams feel like they deliver a great site search experience. So we can kind of get into why, but
Oh.
that's incredible. 96% of all relevant search, 96% say all relevant search was critical, yet 59% don't track who uses the search bar. 64% never look at top queries. 90%, 92% ignore no results. I just talked about that. And I'm not going to give you everything here. I want you to download the report at the end, but here's kind of the highlights. But 58% want AI-tuned relevance and 84% rate their AI maturity as early as it started. So those are some of the highlights. And yeah, it's many reasons we should dive into like why that might be the case.
Yeah, and those translate into real stories, right? Talking to those universities that, I mean, things like just finding a form for financial aid sometimes it's a hard thing to find, and parents are struggling to find, locate the details about events. So that kind of stuff, it does affect the enrollment and satisfaction of the overall student population. And when you're not looking at the stats, you're not looking at the analytics, right? How can you find that out? And maybe that's kind of a segue into the next part is what is stopping the organizations, from doing it better, from improving this, the experience. What are the challenges that are more persistent in the higher ed space?
I would say, and I've talked to hundreds of schools about this, and I see if you look at the spectrum of higher ed from community colleges to the, state R2s, R1s, Ivies, yeah, put Stanford at the top there because they're so disparate and complex. The very complex largest institutions are so decentralized, and that's not going to change. There used to be this idea that you could centralize and migrate, and let's get us all using the same CMS. And I know or Stanford's environment, and I even talked to Harvard and some other schools, are so siloed that's the starting point, is we're so complex. So number one, do we have data everywhere in different formats, but we also have so many personas, right? Look at our current students, all the different types of current students. Look at the prospective students, all the different types of those, from community members to donors to, we can go on and on. So combine that with the decentralized nature. And then it's only got worse because in the last 10 to 15 years, we're really realizing the benefits of these platforms we've implemented, whether it's a platform like an Acquia supporting an open source solution or higher ed specific CMSs. We might have hundreds of people creating content. And that's pretty unique to higher ed. I've worked with even government and financial institutions, and no one's doing that, right? There's a small number of people who can update content. So the fact that it's very difficult to take on that digital governance, and most schools are very early on with their digital governance maturity, if they have anything at all. It'll often just trickle down to a faculty member's decision because there is no digital governance. So the lack of digital governance and maturity, the complexity, and the whole kind of the idea of tackling it from below with digital governance, but then your site search tool was kind of this inherited free thing that you're just using because no one's complaining. So those are the big themes that I'm seeing over and over out there.
Okay. And I don't usually like to use those words like the silos of information. We have been talking about that for forever, right? But that is the case, right? You end up with a whole bunch of silos of informations across the organization. Each department will have its own thing, and the search tool cannot go across all that, right? It's one of the biggest. I mean, it sounds basic, but I have seen this a lot in my customers as well.
And that search data is gold, because this is where our prospective students and our users are telling us what they want in their own language. So we need a tool that we can tune and say, like, we have all these maybe campus specific acronyms and micro branding within our school, and it's often going to take an algorithm, some learning. So you need to be able to tune that tool as well. You wonder why AI is not taking over higher ed search. It's because no one's figured it out yet. It's really hard to do, but yeah, it's kind of I think the low-hanging fruit of the digital experience.
Okay, so talking about that low-hanging fruit and then maybe what to do, right? But what works? What can be done? What can the schools, the universities can do to improve that, to make that better?
I think the first thing is to get the data, right? How minimal it might be, how great it might be, get access to that data, especially if you're a marketer. If you're on the hook for whatever enrollment goals or retention goals or whatever your fundraising goals are, I mean, there's so many different types of benchmarks you might have, but get the data from wherever it is. And that's going to do a couple things. Number one, you're going to have access to make some decisions. Number two, you might realize that you don't have the data or realize I don't have enough of this data. And that's going to put pressure on this delivering party saying like, oh, we could get more than that. So I know, number one, get your data. What do you have now? Invest in a modern cloud-based search that you have control over. I would say it's the next one. I have a quick story about when I was at my last institution and we did a big web redesign and we did a burn and build. We said, we're not going to take any of this old content. We're going from 12,000 pages to 1,000, and we're going from 800 publishers to 50. Those were the goals. We didn't quite make it, but we went from 8,000 to 1,200 pages. We went from 800 publishers to about 100, and we didn't scope in search. And what I realized was no matter, we had an agency help us with the UI. We did everything right, I felt like. Did all the card sorting. So we have all that covered, but we didn't do the search. And our service desk got hammered. No matter how great your UI is, when you go live with something new, it's new. So I would say the agencies get this. The platforms, Acquia is on it. Like all these platforms get it because it makes them look better when they scope in search to a redesign, because that's when it's going to get leaned on the most. So scope in search when you do it's a good way to tack on budget too, if you have to. And then structure your content for both users and crawlers. We need the content to be structured properly. Talked about the governance. That's hard, but you can start that process, the governance. I don't really know how it works at a school like Stanford. That's got to be a pretty big challenge is governance across such a diverse school. And then get your data, build your data process. I talked to a school, TCU is doing this really well, in that they access their analytics, their search data, and tune it at least weekly, like if not a couple times a week. And they'll see things like, the no results are huge. A different school, not TCU, a different school even saw in their no results that dental hygiene was being searched so often, and they didn't have a dental hygiene program. And now they're looking at providing that program. So the insights you can get from your search data are incredible.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, talking as a user, that's the first thing I do. Now I am somewhat old-fashioned. I still kind of click through around the site a little bit, but most often than not, I just go to the search bar and search for what I want. I think I do that like 80% of the time, probably. So just having a little bit of a better search on the homepage, I think will go a long way for all the users. You did mention a few things, a few big words like AI. That's the buzzword of the moment, right? Everybody's talking about that. So looking to the future, talking more about like trends and maybe takeaways. What are your thoughts about technologies like AI, machine learning, and how they're kind of reshaping how users find content, right? Even things like personalized recommendations and a more like smart search type of suggestion and maybe real-time reactions to what the user is doing. I mean, where are we going with that?
Yeah. I love saving this to the middle or the end, because we'll just go off on it. It'll take the whole conversation, but I love talking about when people think about AI right now, like we're all using it in some way. They think of Gen AI, right? I'm thinking I want the pretty little summary that seems to do a great job. And I would just ask everyone, why is higher ed not there yet? I've seen schools experimenting with it, and I've actually saw Stanford side is doing it pretty well, but not many schools have adopted that. Number one is most of higher ed is pretty far behind, and they're still on this free tool we're trying to get out of. But there's the other part of AI that most enterprise companies have already implemented, which is using the machine learning and the AI, natural language processing on the administrative side to make sure your algorithm is working better. That's where you need to make sure you're starting, because what we've seen with schools that are doing this well is their click-through rates are jumping from, when you do a search, we look at like how many people are actually clicking through to those search results. And a benchmark of like 35% is okay. It's kind of like, if you're going below that, we need to work on this. We're seeing an excess of 50 to 60% click-through rates on searches when you've optimized it using AI, machine learning, natural language processing, and even some newer features that, like one is like when you see those no result searches, well, why doesn't AI just fix that? Can't we just fix that? Well, we can, but if we just build that in the algorithm, you have no control. And how do you fix it when it breaks? So what you do is you have a mechanism for the administrator on the back end to just see all these recommendations. Okay, AI wants to do this and this. And what I'm seeing is a lot of schools are accepting about 80% of those recommendations. So it's a good thing we didn't just build it in, because they don't want these proper nouns connecting to these other things. And there's reasons. I heard the TCU web director say, like, we want to be able to connect those dots. Like, higher ed is still pretty afraid of taking these big leaps. So number one, build these features in so you can, we still need a human in the loop though. I really believe in a practical AI approach, that we need core search principles. We need to leverage these LLMs, but we really need a human in the loop still, because the stakes are just too high. The successful companies, you're planning a vacation, or you're gonna check your stuff later. But if you're providing like, what are the general education requirements for this school, like, you're gonna want to have an authoritative voice and make sure that's correct. But so I would say, look at, make sure it's being, you're optimizing, you're taking the right steps. There's not a lot of risk to, having AI suggest a lot of different rankings and results. So that's how we're seeing it.
Suggest, but always have someone in the
Have a
loop.
human in the loop for now. You have to, hallucinations are gonna freak people out, even though they're going down. You
Right.
have to be able to get on those and pick those quickly.
And you did mention something about some improvements that one of your customers were doing like on a weekly basis. And I know this is not a one and done type of thing, right? You're improving your search as you go. So can you share a little bit more about that? Like how,
Yeah, what they'll
like
do is
best
often see
practice?
like something has a low click-through rate or no results, and they'll either realize, do we need to set up a synonym? We have this branded portal, right? my.stanford.edu, and they're not going to the right place or whatever. They might have to set up a synonym for some internal jargon. Or one interesting one I saw was course catalog came up there in their search results. And I saw this and I was like, what? This is not good. He's like, oh yeah, this part of the university switched out the course catalog and they didn't tell us. So they used it as like a monitoring tool to find out what was happening at their school, and said like, oh, point us to the new catalog. So, they might not act on it every week, but at least they're looking to see, number one, is their click-through rate heading the right direction? The average click position is another data point that we often track. Like, are people clicking on the results in the top 3? They got to be in the top 3. And I don't know if this question's being asked. It always gets asked in these sessions, is like, what are the metrics we're going to use when we go to AI? Like, click-through rate might not be the metric. We're not there yet, right? If someone gets their answer right in a quick answer, they might not click through. So we're going to have some new metrics, but we're not quite there yet.
It will likely not click through that. Yeah. I know there's a deep dive now. Maybe that's going to be the next measure. Well, I don't know, Jeff, is there any other comments you want to make? And
Well, I'll say one more thing before I'll like show the kind of some takeaways I have, and then how to get this report. And one is, I'm doing my own research right now based on these clients I work with, and it's to look at search click-through rates for very popular and generic terms like library and bookstore, and even the term nursing, and programs that are very generic, but versus very specific searches. And what I'm seeing is that the very specific searches are getting much higher, like 10x click-through rates than general search terms. It's really interesting. I don't have that data released yet, but I'm going to share my slides here and just walk you through one more thing I wanted to share with you. If you could take anything from this, Do you see the slide? Everyone good?
Yep.
So, a great digital experience is a takeaway is still unicorn. It's really hard. Your web page might look great, but 4 out of 5 colleagues probably quietly know it's not hitting the mark. And so, the other takeaway is that site search is often the forgotten first party gold mine. And it's not that hard to implement because we can leave everything where it's at. Students are literally typing their needs into your search, and the answers often just go into a black hole. And then the AI appetite is huge, but the readiness is not quite there. We're not quite ready for that. So that was about it. I wanted to we'll have some questions we had, if you had any. And if you want this report, go to searchstacks.com. You see this bar at the top of this slide here. You'll see that on the SearchStacks page. You can just put your info in and download the report if you want it. It's about 30 pages. It's a nice PDF. But if you want to meet with me, I love talking about any digital challenges, whether it's search or digital experience platforms or content management, that type of thing too. So that's what that.
I would highly recommend downloading the report. This whole presentation happened because I did that. I was doing some research and I found that on the website from SearchStacks. And I thought, well, this is really interesting, right? This is something we should be sharing with our higher ed customers. One thing for me is that as an Acquia customer now, you will have access to SearchStacks. Every single Acquia customer now the Acquia search capability will be moving over to SearchStacks platform for free, right? There's no cost associated with that. You're gonna have your basic SearchStacks package. There are options for upgrades, more AI capabilities and more analytics capabilities that you can sign up for, but you don't really have to do anything. You're gonna probably your account manager will be in touch if they're not already to make that happen, right? To get you over the SearchStacks platform. That alone will give you access to a lot of the things we have been talking about and how you can improve your searching capabilities as well. But I think with that, we'll open for questions. We have plenty of time. We want to make sure we address anything that's on your mind. Oh, if not, we're going to give you some time back. Is that a question in the
Oh,
chat?
I got questions.
All right.
I just needed to warm up
Right.
the room. Everyone's just like, she always talks first. So see, Sean, yep, I knew it. So thank you very much for plugging the Acquia contract. So I want to make sure you know that there's a mix of people here. Some of these folks are from Stanford, some are from outside, and even those that are at Stanford, not necessarily 100% on the Acquia service, because we have a variety of different services available at Stanford. So maybe one of the things we can do as a follow-up action, though, is to set up a workshop style conversation with those that are interested and are using Acquia for their Stanford hosted website, and help us smooth the path to making use of the service that you mentioned that is available, since that's a fairly new rollout, right?
It is, yes.
So can you talk, my first question though is, can you talk about kind of the utility of any search product for finding content that's behind authentication? So one of the challenges that I see for our website owners is that they may be running a mixture of public and private websites, and finding information for our internal audience is also really super difficult.
That's a great question, and it does come up occasionally where you want to search your portal at the same time, and we do handle that. We can use like token-based authentication, and you can actually show all your results, and then the ones that are behind authentication show a little blur out or a lock, which is kind of a UI way to do it. The other way is like to have a special page for that, but often what we'll do is just have a kind of a lock mechanism. Would want to dive into the details of how your authentication works and all that, but it's a great question because I always want to support the create once, publish anywhere, and I see a lot of schools like publishing the same content both in their intranet and extranet. So I'm like, I want to help you with that, but definitely possible. Probably not used enough. Like, um,
Yeah, and one of those things that makes people really nervous because if it's not locked down properly, you know,
yeah.
you make it easier to find. We
Mhm.
use the phrase security by obscurity, and I'm increasingly uncomfortable with that because just nothing's obscure anymore
Right.
if everything is a lot more findable.
Okay.
Turn it over to the room. Does anybody else have any questions for Jeff and Bruno? Anybody feel like search is fantastic on my site? I have nothing to worry about. Also, no.
You bring up one good point, though. I'll just make this last comment on the last minute is that I would say a decade plus ago, I would see a lot of schools where they couldn't even, their stakeholders wouldn't agree to what this homepage was even for. So you would see a lot more content for current students on the homepage. Now, at least most schools have realized, like, let's give them their own little login button on the homepage. So we're slow to make change, but at least we're, I think, getting there.
Yeah, that's definitely a content strategy across a large distributed university is particularly challenging. Kane.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so in recent years, especially, search has, in many cases, moved towards heavily processed results, like summaries and interpretations rather than just raw matches. And some people see this as kind of undermining search quality, especially for, higher ed people might be consider themselves really skilled searchers. Um, can you say more about what factors an institution might consider in determining what approach will work best for any given search experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just had this realization using ChatGPT the other day that like now it shows your thinking, it shows it's thinking, and I'm like, these LMs are better searchers than I am now. So like, I would say this, like I mentioned, that research I'm doing, looking at these generic terms, nursing and library, those are more suited for AI. So because that person maybe just, if we provide them a little summary of the nursing program and then all the specific results, that might be more useful. We have this now. If you go to searchstacks.com and search for like in a question format, you'll see an answer engine we're testing. We do handle this. We're just very cautious. So I would say that's a tough one, but looking at your data, starting with your data, because in your data, you can start to see what are the long tail keywords, right? That's the trigger. How many of these probably younger students or younger audiences we have are going to have longer tail keywords? Are those increasing? It's going to start with our data to look at that, and kind of a chicken egg thing. I remember mobile saying like, why is our site not mobile optimized? Well, no one's using mobile. Like, well, maybe if we had a mobile optimized, it would more people use mobile. So I think there's some of that too, but I think we just need to get more in tune with our data, and we can probably use AI to even analyze like, hey, these long tail keywords, these generic ones, like how should I handle this? So I don't know. We could probably have a whole nother session on that. Great question.
Are you able to, or do you know of techniques to deliver different search results to the type of user that might be searching? So for example, how can we detect when it's a prospective student coming from outside versus a current student
Yeah,
where what they're looking for, the content priorities would be entirely different?
Yeah, that's the key is context-based search personalization. So do we ask the user right up front? A lot of schools are doing this now, or there's companies out there that are AI companies that are personalization engines, basically. So do you use one of those, or do we use, what do we know about that user? And I would say personalization is going to really does help that, because when you search for education or nursing or things, it matters who you are. There's so many ways to tackle that. I do believe we should ask our users more often their very first session, like we need to like really take into account who they are, whether we're getting that from the data we know about them or having them self-identify. That's the big question, is how are we going to be, getting that? And higher ed often feels very kind of torn when they talk about personalization. It's been a bad word for the last decade, I feel like.
It's interesting. I had this similar conversation with a group of customers, and I was surprised by most people actually want the sites to ask them more about their preferences.
Mhm.
That give they want to give you more information so you can provide a better search. I thought like most people didn't want to any questions asked, right?
It's
Just do their
it,
thing. It's not the case.
it's weird, isn't it? Because in all of the best personalizations experience we all have, you don't really know. Like you do that one check when you're watching TV, is it me or is it my wife? And that's it. It knows everything else. Like I totally agree with you. There's some sort of reluctance, and part of it's I think our complicated nature of making decisions and things that keeps us back there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Along those lines, then, if there's you think a increasing interest in personalized search results, how would a search engine product help us to remain compliant with privacy laws like GDPR, where people don't want to be tracked?
Yeah, yes, definitely. That's what you want to do in the vetting process of your vendor, and that's what we've already done with Acquia. We're probably SearchStax is probably one of the most compliant out there. Like we're GDPR. Like, if you're not selling in the UK, you might not even be GDPR, but great question. So another reason to pick the right solution provider. A lot of companies out there are trying to tack it on as one of their other products. Like if Acquia built their own, they decided to partner with a best of breed company. I'm also seeing those implementations struggle a lot. Like the company that has their whole DXP or CMS and they have an add-on search. A lot of those are flocking to a best of breed tool right now because of that issue too.
Mhm.
Great
Anybody
question.
else have any questions? I have one question in chat from JC. How do you see the crossover between AI chatbots and standard search mechanisms?
Mhm. Yeah, what 5, 6, 7 years ago was chatbots were the rage, maybe a little even sooner. If you see what a lot of these chatbot companies are doing, they're being rolled up into other companies, right? They're being tacked on to larger suites. So I think, the thing about chatbots is they're good for a specific use case. They were often like a advising chatbot or an IT support chatbot. And so I think it's just one small sliver of what we're seeing now. I think that term is just one little flavor of content discovery overall. That's a tough one to spend a whole lot of time on, but it's just a little one part now. Not it was almost synonymous with AI like just a few years ago, and now it's depending on how they built their flat platform, they're kind of being just rolled into the bigger picture.
John?
Hey, I have a question. So one of the previous talks I attended was talking about mismatching vocabulary when it comes to someone using the word courses, but then a university that's using the word degrees and just like trying to find that mismatch. Do you think there's a place that there should be a LLM that is catered for universities instead of being just used in university?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one of the features I talked a little bit about today, where it was built right into the product to showing those no results searches. What is the synonym for that? It's even using AI has even found some surprising connections that it found a Spanish typo. And Spanish isn't one of the languages we gave it, but it found the right match for a Spanish typo. And but to have there's a way we're thinking about doing that where like we know, since we work with so many institutions at SearchStax, what if we did provide a list of common synonyms and then we load that upon when you sign up? Having LLMs do that, yes. I think we do that right now. You just have to have a human in the loop. But we're actually taking that a step further too, to say like, hey, we know a lot about the space. Let's get you a head start on some of these matches. A lot of them still have to be handled at the university level because they're specific to your school, but that's a good one. Courses and programs and things like that.
So that is the smart match.
Smart Match Assist, yeah, is this a newer feature that's built into the SearchStax platform.
Very cool. Well, I'm glad that John was able to join us because we are working with John right now to make a plan to move at the Graduate School of Education websites to Acquia. So maybe they'll get to
Nice.
join our obviously upcoming pilot of Search Stacks.
Absolutely.
All right, last chance. You've got 2 minutes and 27 seconds, folks. Get that burning question out. Sound just like a NPR fundraiser, don't I? All right, well, I think we may have exhausted it and everyone is interested and ready to sign up for the pilot or searching through their own terms right now going, oh no, I can't find that term on my website. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your experience and the report with us today. We really appreciate presenting at the Stanford WebCamp. And thanks to everybody for
Thanks.
joining us.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
me.
me.
Bye.
Bye, guys.